Nobody gets you ready for Utah football more than the KSL Sports Zone.
Ready?
Kyle Whittingham and the Utes return home for a battle against Kansas State. Your home for the best coverage of Utah football is right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. You're locked on to JJ and Alex on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
What are you doing over there, JJ?
Slapping the bass.
Is there a more recognizable bass player than
Nope.
Flea in the history of rock and roll?
No one has slapped the bass like Flea.
Yeah.
You can tell the second you hear.
Oh yeah, yeah. They turn his Marshall amplifier up in the performances, right?
Some bands try to hide the bass, not the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
No.
You can't hide that kind of bass.
Anthony Kiedis and Flea, and their roles as tweakers in Point Break.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Unbelievable.
Those guys, because they didn't have to act.
I think they just showed up
They
on
almost
set.
won an Academy Award.
I think they just showed up on set that way. They're like, now your character, we wanted to give you some face tat. You've got him. All right.
Took care of that already.
All right. Now, could we have you lose some weight for the role? Oh. You're skin and bones already, Anthony.
Oh,
Kiedis.
you've had a diet of meth for the last 6 months. Okay, well, you're ready for this role. Taking this way serious, guys.
Oh, my goodness. That's a great movie, by the way.
Yeah, it is.
I think that's one of the things that I have like these debates in my head where I'm like, when do I show my like 17-year-old some of these movies that like I loved and
I
at the
want to
same time
rewatch that one.
it is
I bet that's really fun.
I need to rewatch it to tell myself, oh yeah, you could probably watch this. You know what I mean? Like, because I don't know. Something about, and The Town did this, or The Departed. Which one was it? No, it was The Town. When those guys who were wearing like the president's masks, and are robbing stuff, it's actually scarier that way, right? When those guys are wearing the nun outfits, and it's The Town, isn't it? Yeah. When like that Boston cop pulls up. Yes. When that Boston cop pulls up and basically sees them robbing the bank, and they all have Uzis, and he goes, I'm going to look the other way. And he just turns and looks the other way. Everyone's like, best business decision ever. I mean, but those are scary masks, and they shouldn't be. Anyway, all right. Joining us on the program right now.
The power of a Nixon mask. Of course.
Of course, yes. But again, the dead president's robbing banks is pretty dope.
There are monsters on the world.
Here's the deal. We've got to get to the cut.
We got to get to the cut.
We got to get officially into the program.
We're going to get lost in the weeds here.
Let's get it going here. Top of the program, the cut. Firing it up right here with our guy, Steve Bartle. He's our Ute insider for KSLSports.com. Let's get to it.
Covering the Utes better than anyone else. This is Ute insider Steve Bartle of KSLSports.com on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Doug Smith brings you this portion of the program. An incredible selection of Kia, Subaru, Chevy, Jeep, Dodge, or Ram, and Mitsubishi now in the family of Doug Smith dealers. Nobody knows cars like Doug. Nobody knows the Utes like our own Steve Bartle, Ute insider for KSLSports.com. What's going on, Steve?
What's up, fellas? How we doing?
Yeah, we're good, man.
Great.
We just got through our own version of what the college football playoff rankings are going to look like as of tonight. I think the entire world has Utah and BYU being that 11 and 12 spot. You have it any differently? Do you see BYU maybe being put ahead of either Oklahoma, Notre Dame, or Alabama, any of those two lost teams?
No, I think they land where everybody's predicting them to land at 11 and 12. I think obviously with the big win for both BYU and Utah this weekend, that certainly helps. But I don't know that it's enough to move ahead of those programs that have been ahead of Utah and BYU, for the last week or so. So, obviously Texas losing that helps. The Oklahoma win, I think a lot of us had that one pegged as Alabama winning that one, and I think that was sort of what we were, looking for and anticipating, last weekend is potentially, those two teams, Texas and Oklahoma, the two former Big 12 programs, taking losses late in the season to potentially help the former conference that they once called home And obviously Oklahoma went into Tuscaloosa, got a big win, and Texas took a beating in Athens. But what's interesting is you look at those schedules still for the teams ahead of BYU and Utah, and there's still a chance that things get a little chaotic with these next 2 weeks. But in terms of what happened, this past weekend, I think moving up a spot for both BYU and Utah, I think that's sort of what we're all anticipating and what we see tonight.
As for Utah, it looks like their odds are around 12.9% to make the Big 12 championship game. We know it's going to be difficult. Have you taken a deep dive into what has to play out in order for Utah to land in that game and get a rematch against Texas Tech or a rematch against BYU?
Yeah, it's actually, it's really simple, and there's a lot of different scenarios that can play out. But essentially, BYU losing to Cincinnati this week would be would put Utah in a pretty favorable position. You would then also need Cincinnati to take care of business the next week, and you would also need Houston and I believe Arizona State to maintain their 2-loss record as well. So you need to end up in at least a 14 tie for Utah to end up with the tiebreaker scenario in their favor. Obviously, if things go super chaotic and BYU and Cincinnati both lose the next 2 games, obviously that helps Utah's case a lot. But that's not what we're anticipating in any sort of way. So I think the simplest route for Utah is Cincinnati winning this weekend, Utah continuing to take care of business on their own end, and that puts Utah in a pretty favorable position. So there are a lot of different scenarios that we can run through, and there are tools out there that people can utilize to figure them out. But that is essentially what needs to happen is BYU losing this week to help Utah's case the most. It's essential. It has to happen.
Yeah.
It's hard to watch this kind of thing go on because we know how much love that these SEC teams will end up getting, and the train wreck that we're anticipating is Texas A&M losing to Texas in that final game of the season for both Texas and Texas A&M of the regular season, and that would put a one-loss Texas Tech or a Texas A&M team, down a little bit, but they would still stay a playoff team. And then is there a version where these 3-loss SEC teams do find their way in over a 2-loss Utah or over a 2-loss BYU team?
We've learned never say never with the playoff committee, but it would set a pretty wild precedent. And, maybe that's what the playoff committee is going to be about now that they have an SEC AD in the chair. There's certainly a concern there, but I think when you look at Texas' resume, obviously adding that sort of win with Texas A&M would do a lot for the resume, but their losses have been, losing to Florida. That's not a great look. And I think 3 losses, when you have these other programs like BYU and Utah that have done enough to take care of business as best they can and have 1 loss and have 2 losses, I think you need to reward that. And I think that should be the priority. But again, you just never know. So, there's a lot to play out, and even with Oklahoma, right? They still have Missouri this weekend. They have LSU the final week. There's room for chaos there. There's Notre Dame. They've got Syracuse and Stanford, and with Andrew Luck and Frank Wright, do they surprise? That's going to be a late night kick, a super late night for Notre Dame, even with a 10:30 p.m. Eastern kickoff time. So there's room for chaos with Texas. That win will help them, but it would be surprising, but also not at the same time that the committee would elect to put them in. I don't see it.
Well, looking at Utah, all they can do is to continue to win and win in dominant fashion, which they've done ever since that BYU loss. And offensively, I really found it interesting, Steve, watching Jason Beck manage this injury to Devin Dampier, because if you just did things straight and without creativity, that could be a big concern for Utah. But they've been able to negate that situation by getting a lot of playmakers involved. As you're watching what Jason Beck has done with managing the limitations that Devin Dampier has. What stands out to you about it, and why has it been so successful?
What stood out to me the most is his ability to manage these two quarterbacks, Devin Dampier and Bird Ficklin, and getting Bird on the field to supplement, Devin's usage, particularly in the run game, has not necessarily meant that Dev has left the field either. And I think that's been a really unique dynamic and element that I think both have embraced. With them both on the field, they both talked about what it's meant to be on the field together and how they would celebrate, if and when they got into the end zone. So it's been interesting. I think Beck deserves a lot of credit for creating this sort of camaraderie between Dampier and Ficklin, because we know the nature of that position. There's one spot, and that's how we've always talked about it, right? The old adage is if you have two quarterbacks, you have none. And I think Beck has done a really great job of creating confidence in both quarterbacks, and that says a lot. And so, we shouldn't take for granted the fact that these two quarterbacks are, not just performing, but performing at a really high level. Like that, just because, Utah's found success on the ground, like these quarterbacks deserve a lot of credit for that and embracing the opportunity to play together. So I think that above all else is what has stood out to me, the last few weeks, is managing these two quarterbacks and getting the most out of it. But, to your point, you can go back to last year and, you look at some of the passing game numbers. I think Utah finished with just over 100 against Baylor. And obviously when you have success running the ball like they did at 380 yards, it's going to take away some of the opportunities to move the ball through the air. But again, throwing for 100 yards on Saturday, you go back to Cincinnati, not the most explosive passing game. Similar story against Colorado with Bird Ficklin getting the start in that game. And so teams know that Utah is going to run the ball. They know that. They prepare for it. There's nothing really new in that sense, but Beck has found a way to, keep defenses off balance with all that they're doing, with the guys that they're having take snaps in wildcat situations, with some of the motions and all of that sort of stuff has really created a difficult run game to defend. And when you have an offensive line that is blocking in the way that it is and really performing at a high level, having a defense off balance is what allows this offensive line to thrive when you compare it to what it was like last year, where there was no passing game. Everybody knew that Utah wanted to run the ball, but just couldn't. The offensive line couldn't generate push because the offense was just predictable. It was inside zone to the left, inside zone to the right, and that's basically all that it was. Where Beck has allowed the offensive line to shine is through his creativity and attacking different parts of the field, which I think has been really, really impressive. So those two things, managing the quarterbacks and then, the diversity and the creativity in the run game to allow that offensive line to shine.
So I was looking at the numbers here for Utah and the running game. They're averaging over 280 yards on the ground per game, which puts them here. So here's the top four. The top four in the country goes Army at 4 at 260 a game, Air Force at 3 at 272 a game, and then the Utes are number 2 in the country behind. So they've split they're actually better than 2 of the 3 military academies on this. But I think more importantly, Steve, the reality is that this team is 170 yards better per game. In the rush game. They're at number 2 in the country in a rushing offense. And at this point last year, they were in the bottom third. And that's just an insane jump from one year to the next. Is this going to be an identity that because we've heard Kyle Whittingham talking about how Bird Ficklin's going to be the future at quarterback, for this team. So do you anticipate that this is going to be the style of offense that goes forward, an extremely mobile quarterback and less emphasis on that passing game?
Yeah, obviously I think with the success that they've had, it's fit the identity and brand of football that Kyle Whittingham has wanted. Now, obviously there's a conversation to be had about, when Morgan Scalley takes over, what sort of offense is he going to look for? I know that he understands the importance of a passing game, and because I know that he feels that it impacts recruiting as well. So, there's certainly room for more production in the passing game. I don't think Utah wants to be as lenient towards the run, but when you're this productive, why not, right? Like that's going to be the thing. So I do think there's always going to be that desire to be balanced, and Utah is going to play to their strengths, and that's going to be the overriding factor above all else. But I do think this is the offense. I think this is an offense that works well for Utah, given their, where they've been able to build their program through the trenches, both offensively and defensively. It plays into sort of their strengths as a program. And, with who they've recruited, they've got Bird Ficklin obviously in the program. They've got another quarterback committed to them in Michael Johnson. That's another dual threat quarterback, and they continue to recruit those types of quarterbacks for the future, which again leads you to believe that is going to be the identity. So, I think this is sort of the brand of football that fits well for Utah, given what they have in the program and how they want to build it. But I just think that there's always going to be that desire to be balanced and to play to their strengths. And, and they've done a tremendous job of recruiting to the trenches. They have, 5-star offensive tackle commit in Kelvin Obot, who some services have as a top 25, top 10, top 5 player. And when you bring in that kind of lineman, it really does a lot to help your run game to be as effective as it is. So, I think it all fits well with what they want to do, and it's worked well this season and has really put the program in a great situation compared to where the program was this time a year ago.
Kansas State comes into town this weekend, a program that has been disappointing, to be quite honest, this year. I think a lot of people thought they'd be in the mix. A top 25 team. Avery Johnson has not met expectations either, but he is a dual-threat quarterback, and QB run has been a problem for this Utah defense. How concerning is that for Utah, and how important is it for the Utes defense this week to prove that they can contain one of the best running quarterbacks in the country?
Yeah, I think, Avery Johnson, he's a tremendous talent. He has been and always, has that sort of talent. I've liked him and felt that he had another level or two that he could get to this season, but he just hasn't. He's continued to kind of perform at the level he has. And I figured with experience he would take a step forward, and he's done well to improve some of his numbers. He's got a 17-5 touchdown to interception ratio, which is a big improvement from last year, where he was 25-10. And, you see the improvements there. They've added receivers to that passing game that have helped Avery as a quarterback as well. But I think the book on him continues to be just some of his decision-making and the level at which he processes things just sort of takes dips unexpectedly and in certain situations, right? You go back to the Kansas State-Baylor game. Kansas State all but, they had that game, late in the game. They were up, I believe, a couple scores, and all of a sudden Baylor makes a comeback. Avery Johnson throws a pick six, and that's sort of been, his biggest issue is costly mistakes in difficult situations. So I think Utah can certainly give Avery Johnson some trouble with the way that they're able to generate pressure with what we've seen from the secondary. And obviously when you look at just the raw numbers and what they gave up against Baylor, you can be concerned, but the bigger story there for Utah is the takeaways with 2 interceptions. And I think those plays, that can be the trade-off sometimes is, you may give up a lot of yardage, but if you can get takeaways, that can do a lot to help your chances at improving. And obviously the context around that game is that Baylor was on the field for a lot. And I think Sawyer Robertson is I think he is arguably the best, the most gifted passer in the league. I think he's able to make throws that other quarterbacks just can't make in this league. And you're not going to face that with Avery Johnson. Now, with the dual threat ability, that's going to present some challenges. And I think, this defense, Utah defense specifically, has done a good job of being more aggressive and limiting success over the last couple of weeks. Brendan Sorsby, after he scored that touchdown early in that game, was really balled up, and Utah did a good job once they made some adjustments to limit his effectiveness on the ground. Same with Caden Salter. Salter going into that game against with Colorado, he was a dual threat guy, and Utah did a lot to limit him by just blitzing him nonstop. So, it'll be interesting to see what sort of game plan Scally puts together now that K-State is going to be prepared for a lot of Utah's aggressiveness and blitz packages. Scally's going to have to come up with some different things to give him different looks and keep him off balance. And that's going to be, above all else, the biggest key to limiting Avery Johnson's success against Utah on Saturday afternoon.
Saturday afternoon, Utes taking on the Kansas State Wildcats. Steve, of course, right there with you along the way to get you all the updates, anything Utah-related. Steve Bartle, our Utah insider for KSLSports.com, is going to get you covered. Steve, we appreciate it, man. We'll talk to you later in the week.
All right, sounds good, fellas.
Thanks, Steve. Steve Bartle, everybody. Let me tell you how it goes with Kansas State real quick before we go to break. They hang for about a quarter and a half. That's about as much as they've got in the tank. Because I think that's about where, and I think he's right. They might get some moments there. Against Texas Tech, he ran Avery Johnson had a couple of rushing touchdowns that looked dynamic, as good as anybody, right?
Yeah, I thought there was a little bit of an upset alert going on there early in that game.
It was 12-7, I think, at the half. Yeah. It wasn't like, but that's about as good of an effort as you're going to get all year long from them. Like, that's about as good as they've done.
Yeah,
and it's kind of unfortunate because Avery Johnson, you talk about Sam Leavitt jumping in the transfer portal. Like, does Avery Johnson have a year left of eligibility?
Well, he's a sophomore.
He's a sophomore. Okay,
yeah.
2 years left.
Yeah.
Give that guy some money.
He's a Kansas kid. Like he's homegrown.
Don't care because if you're not doing it and you have the talent and the rest of your team around you is kind of not there, like he could hit he's got 1 year left.
Oh, does he?
He could hit the transfer portal and he could be.
I thought he was a sophomore this year.
He could be a money guy.
Sorry, he's a junior.
He could be a money guy. He's been young. I mean, he's been on the scene and he's been playing, it seems like, forever.
He's from Wichita.
Okay. Like, show me the money.
But who's paying him? I can argue that the reason why Kansas State's underachieving is because of his bad decision-making.
He will. There's some coach who's in love with the athleticism, and it would be an immediate upgrade for their crappy quarterback room, guaranteed. And they would go, because what's like a decent going rate for a quarterback? Like $2 million is not insane, and I bet he's not getting that at Kansas State right now.
Probably not.
So, give him $3 million. Hey, you know who's going to have a quarterback opening at the end of the year? Arizona State. And they're paying Leavitt $2 to $3 million a year, reportedly, allegedly. What do we say?
Crazy.
So it's crazy. So if he finds a different landing spot, come on now. All right. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We've got more around the corner. We've got some tickets to give away for our Jazz Ticket Tuesday. You don't want to miss that. And much more. Stay right here with us, 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone.
It's another battle for the Aggies, and the KSL Sports Zone has it covered. The Aggies head to California for a chance to get bowl eligible against Fresno State. Your home for all the play-by-play coverage of Aggie football is right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. You're locked on to JJ and Alex on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
I don't have good hygiene.
I don't look the part. I'm not svelte. Just some old Bennett Brower, Chris Farley references there.
The things we talk about during the break.
We just mostly it's this. We usually just like reminisce on. It's perfect. We had some Brass Monkey come on. It was about the same time frame, right?
Oh yeah,
early '90s. Give me some early '90s Chris Farley. Well, the network executives and their Q ratings. Well, maybe I don't use deodorant. I scare small children. Yeah, Bennett Brower, one of the best. Would Chris Farley be as exciting if he hadn't passed away when he did?
Oh, yeah, I think so. I mean, for some people, I think his act would have. Are some people sick of Adam Sandler at this point? Probably.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But how successful has he been?
Oh yeah. Imagine all the roles that Farley would have played just in the Sandler movies.
Oh, my
that have come out over the years, right?
And his best roles sometimes were the cameos.
Oh, yeah, the
like
bus driver and Billy Madison. Yeah, absolutely. Let me
in
see
Wayne's
here.
World, the roadie.
The roadie. Like, that is a perfect vibe
Just
for him.
great. I mean, just little 5 minutes here and there, Chris Farley can brighten your day. Yeah, rest in peace.
I remember exactly where I was. I was in our football training room when I found out about his passing. And, like, I remember, like, our trainer and I, like, that's where we went back and forth with, like, all the Farley quotes
Just all the lines,
the time.
all the stuff he
Yeah,
did.
man. And we were devastated, dude.
Yeah.
It was crazy. All right. Let me see here. Isn't that funny? You, like, remember where you are on that kind of stuff?
He's
but
been gone for almost 30 years.
I know. I barely
insane.
remember my wedding day.
But you can recite all the skits on Saturday Night Live.
Most guy thing ever.
Yeah, it is. Our brains, man.
We're terrible people. All right. JJ, I got some tickets to give away. It's a Jazz Ticket Tuesday, so let's go right on ahead. Fire it up. Let's do it.
It's Jazz Ticket Tuesday, and your chance to win tickets is right now.
Call this number now.
Call this number now.
Be caller number 12 at 801-575-ZONE. 801-575-ZONE. And you'll be on your way to Delta Center to see the Utah Jazz.
He fires the three. Hey, hands! Oh, don't do me like that.
This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Call right now, 801-575-ZONE. That's 801-575-ZONE, 801-575-9663. Your Jazz Ticket Tuesdays are going to get you this week a pair of tickets to the Jazz taking on the Oklahoma City Thunder on November 21st. So here we go. We're just a few days away from it. Get you some time to get those tickets scored and take a loved one with you and go watch the Utah Jazz. Nice little fiery, lively startup versus the world champs in the Oklahoma City Thunder. That sounds so weird to say. The struggling Jazz versus the world champion Oklahoma City Thunder.
What world do we live in? I never
know.
thought I'd see it.
I know. It's crazy. So there you go.
Hey, if the Thunder can do it, the Jazz can do it someday.
Absolutely. Why not? Hey, so the reports are that Sam Leavitt might be thinking about a possible transfer. Now, there's a guy who's been banged up quite a bit this year. It seems strange for a guy who he grew up in Arizona, right?
Have you followed his story, though? It's not that strange.
Oh, I guess Oregon is kind of the
He's from Oregon.
yeah, Oregon, I guess, is where they're quote unquote from. But yeah, I don't think what's crazy to me is the idea that Kenny Dillingham is being flirted with. People like the guy. They like what he does. Big programs who are going to pay more money than Arizona State can pay are going to be offering him a gig at the end of the year.
If I was one of these big openings, I would be
beating his door down.
He might be my first call.
He's in his late 30s. He's as fired up as a person you could get. He has culture immediately that he installs.
The job he did last year is one of the best I've seen a young
But he's
coach
an
do.
ASU guy.
Right.
And all he's talked about, like this would be a bigger diss on your own fan base than when Jed Fish was like, I'm going to be here a long time, you guys, and then was suddenly coaching in Washington 5 seconds later as he
but Jed Fish had no ties to Arizona. This is different. This is a Sun Devil.
I know. He's been activating the Valley. Activate the Valley.
But loyalty's a funny thing because if they lose Sam Leavitt and Jordan Tyson moves on, and all of a sudden you're looking at this roster and they suddenly become the team we thought they were going to be last year, right? I think the margin is thin for Arizona State. And then what if Dillingham has a couple of bad years? Does everybody down there still love him?
Okay, let me.
So sometimes you jump while the saying goes, the iron is hot.
Okay,
Hasn't always worked out for everybody.
Brian Kelly's salary at LSU. Any guesses? Don't look it up.
I'm not looking that. I'm looking up something else that I think is actually more of an apples to apples comparison. But go ahead.
So Brian Kelly. So an LSU salary. What's your guess, Napolis, on how much Brian Kelly was making down there at LSU?
Per year?
Yes. No. Yeah. Tell me what he was making per year. That's what it means.
10?
10.1. You were right freaking on.
Wow.
Okay. Guess what Kenny Dillingham is making at Arizona State after all of the incentives and everything per year?
Not close to that.
8.
Oh, maybe he is close to that.
I was shocked.
$8 million at Arizona State?
Yes.
A year?
But see, here's where we've gotten. Because to pay a coach now, you have to exceed what the other guy was getting. The buyouts are hilarious now because now the buyouts actually don't, I feel like they don't even exist. You saw that what James Franklin's doing?
Yeah.
He's taking a $40 million cut on that buyout.
So he can go coach at Virginia Tech.
So he can go coach at Virginia Tech, and I get it.
If you take another job, you got to give some of that back.
Well, they basically reduce it because of that, right? And so I think it's crazy to think that you would want to go to a place. LSU's not done itself any favors. I don't think Florida does itself any favors. Any of these big programs are going to be paying you. Let's say he does make 30% more. What is $10 million versus $8 million? You know what I mean?
That's not enough for me to jump.
No. But that's what I'm saying is there will be a jump once you start to get to that 12 and 13 number, I think, which is where guys like Kirby Smart are. And again, that's a guy who's won national championships at Alabama or at Georgia. But the new number, it just keeps going up based off of the desperation level of the team who's willing to set that. And it's also a little bit of a flex that these other big programs have where they go, we're going to dig up $13 million a year for you, and you've never even coached at this level. That's how confident we are and how excited we are about you coming here and what we're going to have to do to earn you getting there. Lane Kiffin, I don't know what Lane Kiffin is making at Ole Miss, but I bet we're talking about somewhere around that. Okay, so $9 million for 2025. Potential bonuses put him in the $11 million category, okay? And by the way, he's going to get those bonuses.
Yeah, $2.6 million potential bonuses.
He's going to get those bonuses.
A lot
of them, right?
He'll be
because
an 8-figure coach this year.
They're already. I mean, it's crazy. So they are. We're talking about a guy who would be walking away from a program that is already winning in the SEC, in the portion of the country where you could make a name for yourself, and now you could throw that away to go to Florida. You could throw that away to go to LSU for what? A guy like Lane Kiffin's going to take $15 million for him to go.
Right.
Watch. That's going to be the number.
You'll have to break the bank to get him. But they'll do it. Because they're desperate to win.
It is so ridiculous.
Now, an apples-to-apples comparison to Dillingham, and I think this is a cautionary tale. Jonathan Smith, remember what he was doing at Oregon State?
Oh, my gosh, that poor guy. I say that poor guy. He's not poor anymore ever.
No, that's quite the opposite. Now, Jonathan Smith was a Beaver, man.
Yeah,
he was a quarterback at Oregon State. He was an assistant coach at Oregon State.
Exactly right.
He became the head coach, and a lot of people, when they hired him, thought, is that the best you could do? And he turned that program around, and by the time, right before he left, Oregon State was a force to be reckoned with in the Pac-12. But we all know what happened. The Pac-12 collapses. Oregon State gets left behind. He bails. He goes to Michigan State. Takes $7.25 million per year. How many Big 12 wins does Michigan State have this year?
0.
Who's going to get fired this year?
You think Jonathan Smith will get fired?
How do they not? They're 0-7 in Big 12 play.
The problem is they're coming off.
They have not done anything under him.
The problem is they're also coming off of like a Mel Tucker scandal again, and
So
that
just
whole
gonna
thing.
sit
So they go,
up there-
no.
Yeah.
They vacated all the Mel Tucker wins.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to. So what they need right now is they probably just need a guy that's like a little bit stable for a minute. Places
But
like
your
Michigan.
fans want him out.
Of course.
He's not a Michigan State guy.
Nope.
He's not the traditional hire you get. He's not the big name.
He looks awkward, right, in that Spartan
He doesn't
green on the
belong
sidelines.
there. He belongs in Corvallis. That's my point.
That could be a reboot.
Jonathan Smith in Corvallis makes a lot of sense. Look at these other reboots we've seen lately. Just in the Big 12 alone. Doesn't Rich Rod belong at West Virginia? Doesn't that make sense? Win or lose? Right?
Scott Frost
at
does he belong at
UCF
UCF?
makes a lot of sense, right?
Well,
Because
compared to where they were.
But sometimes these guys go in these places and they jump when it's hot just because the money's there. But they're not a good fit. Brian Kelly at LSU, we all thought, that's weird. That doesn't make any sense. And it didn't. And it ended up being a disaster. These guys become successful in certain places because it's the right fit and because they have a history and they have an emotional attachment to that place and have an emotional investment in that place being successful. Jonathan Smith in Oregon State. Kenny Dillingham at Arizona State. Kalani Sitake at BYU. Kalani at Florida. Does that make any sense? And do you think that would work?
No. All right.
Exactly. That's not a negative on Kalani. It's just you need to go where it makes the most sense. You need to stay put where you fit. And too many coaches are chasing the dollar.
So Lane Kiffin, if he were to leave this year, would have to cut a check to Ole Miss for $4 million.
Yeah.
Next year it would be 3. The year after 2. Right? These buyouts that the coaches have in the reverse order, they negotiate with their new team. Hey, pay my buyout, pay me $15 million a year, and then they get to that point. That's the kind of stuff that they do. It's crazy. So you're actually not paying him $15 million a year. You're paying him the 15.5 that you're going to end up having to bake into a 4-year deal,
right?
Or you're paying him 16 a year because you have to buy him out too. That's what they're requiring. Pay my buyout. All right, we'll take a break. I've got a top 10 here for you next. It's food related, which are my favorite, by the way. You can tell when I'm hungry. Days that I'm hungry when these lists come out. All right, stay with us. 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone.
Complete game coverage of the Cougars is right here on the KSL Sports Zone. It's a huge Big 12 battle for the Cougars as they head to Cincinnati for a showdown against the Bearcats. Your home for the best coverage of Cougar football is right here on 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone. You're locked on to JJ and Alex on 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone.
I love this. You know why? That's what I'm going to do. Close my eyes and slip away right here.
We're just getting ready for Tim Lacombe coming up.
I was
going to
say this would have been a perfect
breaking out some classic rock.
Oh yeah, man.
I know he's listening right now. He'll be ready.
Tim
just to get
Lacombe
him fired up for a
Tim
second.
Lacombe's going to hang out with us for our Jazz Daily segment coming up here. It's an interesting time to be a Jazz fan because you're torn. What do you do? Stop winning, you awesome basketball team, you. Well, we'll see how it goes. We'll talk to Tim coming up here at the top of the hour. Nominate that U Sports volunteer for the Hercules Hero of the Week award. All you have to do is submit that nomination, KSLSports.com/contest, and listen every Thursday to JJ and Alex for a winner. Help us celebrate the impact of the Hercules Hero of the Week. Sponsored by Hercules First Federal Credit Union and Beehive Meals. Quick top 10 right here I have in front of me. This is, I was given this idea by us talking about Kenny J's and an alternative to the norm for Thanksgiving.
Which is totally fine.
And they do the smoked turkey, which is an underrated item that they do.
It's their smoked turkey is great.
Phenomenal. But they're also doing briskets. So they're doing the briskets and the turkeys, right? And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to find a list. And I did. Crazy. I found a list. The top 10 alternatives as voted by Americans of what for turkey in place of turkey on Thanksgiving. Okay? Annapolis, you ready? Hit the 60 seconds on your mark. Both of you are participating, right?
Yeah.
On your mark. Get set. Go.
Ham,
Ding.
chicken, steak.
Well, hold on. What kind of chicken?
Grilled chicken?
Okay, well,
Roasted chicken?
I'll accept chicken. Ding, roasted chicken. Ding.
Fried chicken.
No, not on the list. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Duck.
You said steak. You said duck.
Yeah, I did.
Ding.
We got no turkey. What other
Hey.
bird? Brisket.
Brisket not on the list.
Ribs.
Wait. What kind of rib?
Beef ribs.
Prime rib. How about that?
Prime rib.
I'll give you prime
that's
rib.
a good one. Yes,
it's a
prime
different
rib.
Ding.
A roast.
It's in the same category.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Something vegetarian.
What are we
Shame
talking
on
here? I know, but what are we talking here? That's number 10 on the list.
Oh man, what's a vegetarian? An eggplant or something? I don't know. You're asking me to identify a vegetarian
an
mid
eggplant
dish?
or something? They call it an aubergine over in England. No, but it's not on the list.
No idea. We did pretty well, didn't we?
I think you did all right.
What did we
I would
miss?
have
Hot
eaten all
dogs?
the things. You would have
Hamburgers?
said. I would also eat
Pizza?
those things. I'm going to be honest.
Taco Bell?
Turkey's not my favorite. You know, I will say
What did I miss?
that if you were to go full on, and just like
Chimichangas?
and do some like
Burritos?
yeah, that's what I was going to say. You could get some tacos in there. It'd be pretty phenomenal. Okay, number 10, mushroom steak. Mushroom steak is a thing. Number 9 is stuffed
Embarrassing.
winter squash.
Get out of here with that crap.
Okay, now we're getting into the good stuff.
Okay, good.
Beef Wellington, number 8.
Oh,
Nice.
that's underrated.
Well, it's expensive is what it is.
It's hard to make.
A pork loin.
You know what?
Leg of lamb.
I've done that.
I know. Leg of lamb.
Okay, yeah.
Goose.
Oh, I forgot
No.
goose.
Duck is also on the list. Prime rib at number 3. Glazed ham is number 2, and then roasted chicken is the number 1 alternative.
So what do you get?
I think the brisket could be on this list very well. Very easily.
Agree. Any barbecue item would be great.
All right. Take a break. Tim LaComb's going to join us next right here. Stay with us, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.